I'm very happy to introduce our keynote speaker. He is the Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Indio, Mr. Oscar Ortiz. Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz was elected to the Indio City Council in 2018 after running a highly successful grassroots campaign. He serves on the Energy and Environment Commission for both Coachella Valley Association of Governments and the Southern California Association of Government. He is involved with the Water Education for Latino Leaders, also known as WELL, which some of you are probably familiar with, and recently completed their UnTapped Fellowship Program. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz.
Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing today? Good. First of all, just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today to talk about these very important subjects of equity and water. Today, I was reminded today that we're celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the Human Right to Water Act, and we've made a lot of strides with that act, but we still have a lot of room to improve on as well. My name is Oscar Ortiz. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Indio. As Heather mentioned, I'm here on behalf of WELL as well, which is Water Education for Latino Leaders. It's a nonprofit that focuses on water education for local elected officials of all backgrounds in hopes of just building a better leadership that can handle some of the challenges that we're going to be seeing here in the future. I've been in office for 4 years now, mainly focused on supporting housing options for our local families and increasing community engagement. I've also been very active in keeping up with the sustainability topics, including renewable energy and water conservation. Today I think I'm going to start off, I know a lot of you know a lot about the drought and the water issues that we have going on today, so I wanted to share some personal stories and background information to explain why I'm so passionate about equity in all of our conversations in government, and also why I'm so passionate about water conservation and environmental protection in general. So when I started going to council meetings about 5 or 6 years ago, we actually had no Spanish translation for any of our meetings, our agendas, and this is in a city that is 54% of our families speak Spanish in the home, 24% don't speak English very well according to our census, our 2010 census. And our council also refused to talk about the need for affordable housing. There was no conversation on sustainability, and so we saw a lot of needs in our community that were not part of the conversation in our local government, so we decided to fill in that gap. Today we're making some progress. We've jump-started the affordable housing conversation. We have about 400 units under construction, about 600 in the planning phase. We're providing translation for all of our agendas and council meetings. We're constantly talking about sustainability and the water crisis, and we're actually currently planning out a pilot project where we're going to convert 40 low-income homes to native planting from grass to start a demonstration project for water conservation for our city. And we're also just engaging our residents a lot more in the conversations that we're having in our government, and through social media, through radio, campaigning, a lot of different efforts there. I really love my job, but I don't think I ever really wanted to be a politician. It came more out of necessity. I was more of a science nerd growing up. I'm actually from Mexicali, Baja California, which is Mexico. Growing up, my mother worked in housekeeping. She still does. My father worked in the grape fields out in the Coachella Valley. And growing up, I wanted to be like a veterinarian or a scientist or an astronaut, something like that. And I had a good GPA. I had a 4.9 GPA in high school. I was working summers, weekends. I was playing sports, so I had a pretty good college application. I applied to USC, Berkeley, Stanford University, and I was accepted to all of them, including Stanford. And I remember when we got the letter of acceptance, I remember looking at it with my mom, and we kind of just put it away because we knew that we couldn't afford $50,000 a year to go to college, right? And later I received a call that I had a full ride approved through their financial aid program, and I would be able to attend for free. And so there I was, I had a baby blue lowrider. So I was at Stanford University, baby blue lowrider. I had like hardly no money. So I stood out a lot, but that experience really opened my eyes to inequity. 3 boys from my hallway came from the same high school. They had 12 people that had gotten accepted to Stanford University from a small school with about 200 students. And meanwhile, I was coming from a school of 2,000 kids, and I was the first one in 50 years to be accepted into Stanford University. Apparently, I was also the only one that got pulled over by police. I had been pulled over about 8 times by the time I got to college. One felony stop at gunpoint, and I thought that was normal, right? Yeah, I ended up getting pulled over another 6 times while I was in college. And so, very unique experience, right? I was a chemistry major. My favorite classes were actually art classes, and one of my art teachers was a feminist. Her name was Fabiana Rodriguez, and she focused a lot on women's rights, immigrant rights, and she was actually the one that taught me about the issues of immigration that were happening in my own community that I had no idea about. So, to learn some of those, I don't want to go into the details, it's a really heavy subject, but it was just a lot of seeing children, locked up, physically abused, verbally abused, women that were sexually abused in those detention centers, physically abused as well. And I think seeing that I was supposedly one of the smartest kids in my high school, and I had no idea that this was happening in my own community, I realized that I couldn't just study science, that I needed to use my education to study politics as well, and make sure that our human rights were protected as a community. One day, a funny story, I was in physics class, and we were studying the energy of rockets. And I kind of realized, I was like, we're at Stanford studying rockets, like we could really be astronauts, right? And so I told my friend Christian, we can actually be astronauts. We're at Stanford, we're studying physics of rockets. And then my friend Hui turned around and he said, no, Oscar, you can't be an astronaut, you're too tall. They don't let people over 6 feet tall into spaceships because there's a limit on the height. And so I had to keep looking for other careers. And I went on to graduate as a chemist, and I got a job at a pharmaceutical company, and actually it was really good pay. It was $35 an hour, which is, at that time, it was a lot of money to me, full benefits, and I actually ended up quitting about 6 months into that job because I found out that they were cheating on their water test. They were polluting the local water sources, and to me, I really needed to use my education to help people. It wasn't just about making money. So I left that job, and I think that kind of came from my upbringing, seeing my mother doing so much for her community, always bringing donations, presents for all the kids in Mexico. And my grandmother as well. I remember one of my favorite memories of her was there was this man who was mentally ill that lived in her neighborhood, and he would come around, and every time he came around, she would offer him food, and she would feed him, right? Once I was about 6 or 7 years old, she would actually sit me next to him and have me have conversations with him so I could learn how to live alongside people like that. And so seeing them being such a blessing to their community and being so focused on the issues of equity, right, in our communities really inspired me to keep going in that direction as well. And so after quitting the pharmaceutical company, I ended up in the cannabis industry as a chemist in Los Angeles. Again, another very unique experience, right? But I would often work 10-hour days and stay late to make my own medicines to treat my own patients that I would see one-on-one. I treated all kinds of patients with mixtures of THC and CBD suspended in different kinds of oils. And these were AIDS patients, children with seizures, cancer patients, people that had pain, people who were in hospice, right? So just trying to do a lot of good work with what I had there. And at the same time, Black Lives Matter was starting up in Los Angeles, and I actually ended up in one of their first protests where I was arrested and went to jail for 24 hours for no reason really, right? So I actually went and fought at the LAPD meetings, and I got connected with the founders of Black Lives Matter there, who were really starting off. We started, I think at first, every week we would show up, and 4 or 5 of us there, and that turned into, we filled up a whole room of 100 people, then we had 100 people with a whole group outside, and so it just kept growing. I did that for about 2 years there, helping them read some of the documents coming from the police department and helping out, representing some of the families there. In 2017, I moved back home. I started attending city council meetings, and I realized that what I had learned in Los Angeles and experienced in Los Angeles had actually really prepared me for a council race there. And so at 28 years old, working in the cannabis industry, I was part of a grassroots campaign that got me elected as the youngest council member in the history of the city of Indio. Today, I represent my community on several environment-related committees, including the Coachella Valley Association of Governments Energy and Environment Committee, the Southern California Association of Governments Energy and Environment Committee, and the new SoCal Resilience and Conservation Committee. Last year, I joined the Well Fellowship, where we studied water issues throughout the state of California. For 6 months, we had the opportunity to interview some of the most knowledgeable water professionals in the state, and we visited some of the sites with the most pressing water issues in our communities. We did this in an effort to better prepare ourselves for the decisions that we're going to be making as elected officials regarding water issues in our communities. Our first weekend together was a shock to many people from our cohort. We sat at the edge of the Salton Sea, and we heard about the receding water line that was exposing the surrounding community to toxic dust from the dry lake bed. When we later visited a mobile home park down the street, a few miles away, so not only was this community of thousands of people exposed to this toxic dust in the air, but they were also exposed to contaminants in their water too. We heard directly from a mother about how her daughter suffered skin reactions and hair loss because of the arsenic contamination in their water supply. One of our interviews, Professor Samuel Sandoval, brought one of his former students, whose name was Rachel Kennard, to talk to us about her work around the world studying water contaminants. And as a chemist, I had never really seen somebody that I could relate to working in water issues around the world, and it really it impacted me so much that I started looking for jobs in sustainability. Just looking for ways that I could make a bigger impact on my community with my education. And 4 months ago, I started my new job as Director of Education for an environmental education program in my hometown. So we're expanding our education program from 2nd and 3rd graders and starting to build high school classes and adult classes on wildlife, on water conservation, Native American history, and we're also building a site next to a local tribal reservation for cultural education. You know, a lot of that education is being lost in those communities, so we really wanted to help in that aspect as well. And so it took a lot of people to go out of their way to make sure I stayed on the right path to get me to this position. You know, almost all my family's still in Mexico, but my family's friends really took me in under their wing. You know, I actually thought Stanford was on the East Coast until my Spanish teacher told me that it was in California. And he gave me a fee waiver as well, so I could apply for free, right? So people were just stepping in to fill these gaps. My admissions officer from Stanford, he was actually from Coachella, which is 5 minutes away from my house. He only worked there for 1 year, so I was just really fortunate. And he actually called my counselor and let me know about the financial aid program. You know, without that phone call, I would have missed out on free education at the university. The Black community in Los Angeles also, you know, took me in as one of their own and taught me real Black and brown history that we missed in our high schools, right? And the sacrifices our ancestors collectively went through to actually, just to get us to this point in history. You know, they taught me that as much as the world kind of looks like it's burning all around us right now, our ancestors really went through real hell on earth, you know, to get us here to this point. And we need to learn how they came out of that, and all the successes and the mistakes, and all this knowledge, you know, I'm able to share now with my community. Looking toward the future, my goal is really to empower other people and make sure they have the same opportunities that I did, make the impacts that others made on me. The history I wish I learned in high school, I'm teaching to, you know, every high school student around me in my community. We have a youth advisory council at the city, about 15 high school students, all women, and you should see how engaged they are, how educated they are about these issues of sustainability, of Black and brown history, of inequality, and, you know, just really excited to see what they're going to be doing in the future. I'm also helping a lot of young people in my community, really hardworking people, to run for office, and, you know, letting them learn from my mistakes and helping them with free consulting on their community engagement efforts in our community. My last message to you is, you know, to really just look for those people around you that are willing to make sacrifices for the greater good, who need a chance, and give them the opportunities. You know, I really just believe that wealthy people alone aren't going to be able to save us. You know, sometimes we need people who are coming in hungry from different perspectives, and that you know, that young kid that you see getting pulled over could be heading to Stanford, right? Who knows? Or, you know, the kid in a protest could be your next mayor. So we really just got to look around us, and, you know, look at everyone, all of the young people around us, and help teach them, you know, the way that what you teach them, the way that you treat them, the opportunities you give them can really change the fate of our communities. And so just wanted to thank you again for inviting me to speak with you today. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope to work together with all of you to keep solving all these problems that we have in the future. Thank you.